Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave me some comments once you've watched the whole video. So, today's deck tech is, it's Polukranos Reborn, isn't it? There's no point in me trying to hide it. 3 green mana for a 4/5 with reach, and then you can pay, which it's okay. You can potentially get it out early, but then you can pay 6 and a Phyrexian white, so you can either pay the white mana or 2 life, and it flips into a 6/6 with reach and lifelink, which is a little bit better. But when it dies, it basically leaves you behind a 3/3 Phyrexian Hydra creature token with reach and a 3/3 Phyrexian Hydra token with lifelink, both of which are green and white. It's different. Now, I'm sure there are going to be better builds than what I'm talking about today, but I decided to have some fun with this. And realistically, it's a Hydra, so there's only really one way to go with this, and that was to go down Hydra Tribal. So, this is today's deck. Now, we're a little bit heavier on green. Well, we're a lot heavier on green than we are on white. There's only a few key white cards in there. We've got to have the white mana as well, so we can flip Polukranos. So, bear that in mind as I'm going through the deck tech today. Lands, it's not too bad. It's my usual selection of green-white lands, to be fair. A couple of interesting ones I've dropped in. I will say, if you're looking at the monetary value of this, Gaea's Cradle's in here, you can quite happily drop this out and put another forest in. No issue with that. I've put it in because I've got one on MTGO, and we've got a lot of Hydras coming up. Gavany Townships make an appearance to do the +1/+1 counter side of things, and Khan's Bastion, because a lot of the creatures do have +1/+1s. I figured it was a nice way to pump up those creatures by proliferating, so the Bastion's in for this one. A little bit further down, another expensive card, Savannah's here. I understand, drop this as well if you want to. And I've also chucked in Vitu-Ghazi, the City Tree, for no other reason that I wanted something else to sink my mana into. And if this means I can get a few little sap-pulling chump blockers every so often, I'm happy with that. But again, it can be dropped and another forest can go in its place if you don't want to play it. Ramp-wise, I went heavy. We've got to have 3 green mana for Polukranos, so it is kind of OTT today with the ramp. So we've got Lotus Bloom, Tantalite, and Soul Talisman to start that side of it. Jeweled Lotus is here, Soul Ring is here, Arcane Signet. I've chucked Marble Diamond in, and I've chucked Moss Diamond in, and Talisman of Unity. That's as far as we went with the ramp side in artifact form. I have chucked in a Search for Tomorrow, just so we can suspend something. New Horizons is here as well, because I like having +1/+1 counters kicking around. Same with Grafted Growth. I want the +1/+1 counters around, because basically, you can see from up this end, most of the deck is all Hydras. And we want the Hydras with +1/+1 counters on them as quickly as possible. So, here we go. The only other ramp card, Birds of Paradise, because I haven't played one for a while and I fancy just chucking one in a green deck. Hardened Scales, obviously, with a +1/+1 counter theme, so Hardened Scales is here, along with Durable Handicraft. Yes, you have to pay the one for Durable Handicraft, but the green and 5 and sack it and put a +1/+1 counter on everything should be helpful. Heroic Intervention, Teferi's Protection are both here, along with Unbreakable Formation, just so we can protect all our stuff once we've cast it. Ordeal of Nylea. You can put it on one of your Hydras quite quickly, or, chuck it on your Birds of Paradise if you want to. Get some attacks in with your Bird of Paradise. 9 times out of 10, if you put this on a Hydra, though, you're going to be attacking. You'll have 3 +1/+1 counters on it, and you'll get to sacrifice it and go and find 2 basic lands. We like the little bit of ramp. The new version of the Hardened Scales is here in the Ozoliv, the Shattered Spire. If one or more +1/+1 counters would put on an artifact creature, put that many +1/+1/+1 counters on it. Hope that made sense of all those +1s I was talking about. On the bright side, you can actually tap this one for 2 green, a green and a white normal, and put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, which basically becomes +2/+2 for 2 mana permanently. I can cope with that plan. With Hardened Scales, it becomes +3/+3 for 2 mana, which is even better permanently. Metallic Mimics in as one of the few non-Hydra creatures in the deck, along with Birds of Paradise over here. But it is a shapeshifter, so technically, very technically, it's still a Hydra. And it's another way of making sure our Hydras come in a little bit bigger with the additional +1/+1 counter. Ring of Caloniel is something I completely forgot about existing. I'm going to be honest about this. I saw it played about 2-3 months ago on the stream. I bought one then. Well, I went and picked one up then from one of the traders, probably Goatbots, and I've had it sitting in my collection ever since and completely forgot it existed until I was doing this deck today. So yeah, gives our creatures trample for those who haven't got it, and as at the beginning of upkeep, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on something if that creature's green. And considering virtually all 28 creatures in the deck are green, that will be all the time then. So all good. Protection, Unbreakable Formation, Grafted Growth, I've mentioned. Growing Rights of Imlatex here as well. If you're going to have one version of Gaze Cradle, you might as well have the other one as well. Yeah. Hydra's Growth's an interesting one. At the beginning, when the enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on the enchanted creature, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to double the numbers of +1/+1 counters on it. Put it on some of the X Hydras we've got coming up, things get very out of hand very quickly. Inspiring Call is in, just so we get some card draw. It's quite nice. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it, and also makes them indestructible. So, you know, another way of getting that alpha attack in at some stage. Jing Yang Wildcrafters here because of all the creatures with +1/+1s can tap for mana then, which is easier. First one of the Hydras, Mana Gorger. Probably one of the weaker ones, but hey, it still works. Pledge for Unity, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and then you gain a life for each creature. Gain should work okay in this deck, along with Reap What Is Sown at instant speed. Get to chuck a +1/+1 counter on up to 3 target creatures. Could help you win the game when you needed to. Citadel Siege will probably be the dragon side of it. We can do the cards and get the extra +1/+1s if we want to, if we've got, you know, this out or Ozolith. But, you know, you do want to be able to punch through with this deck, so maybe tapping things with the dragon side is better. Wrath of God's just here for a tiny bit of control. It's purely, you know, this is really a beatdown deck. Lifecrafter's Gift, +1/+1 counter on creature, then each creature with a +1/+1 on it gets to put another one on it, which is most of the deck. A Rampant Rejuvenator, one of the main targets early in the game for +1/+1 counters, so we can get our land out and just make sure we're hitting our creatures every turn. Ramonut Hydra, I've just realised I haven't put the deserts in, so when you look at the deck list down below, I won't do it now, but there'll be a green desert and a white desert in the deck list, so we can make this a 5/5. I forgot about that. Bristling Hydra, just there's no other way of gaining energy, I'll be honest with it, but, you know, it's a 4/3 Hydra. We can give it hexproof to the end of turn. I want another Hydra. Yeah, more the merrier. Renata's one of the other non-Hydra creatures in the deck because every other creature you control enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 on it. Yep, like that plan. And Triumph for the Hordes is our way we're going to hopefully win by giving all of our creatures +1/+1 trample in effect. When we get the big boys into play, we'll just poison our opponents out. Again, my usual rant, wish in Commander the poison counters were 15 to 20 instead of just 10, because it is quite sometimes straightforward. Rant over. Ajani the Greatheart, just so we can chuck around the +1/+1 counters, maybe gain some life if we have it, and give our creatures a vigilance is a nice side effect. Cathar's Crusades in, just to make sure that everything comes into play and we get +1/+1 counters everywhere. Defiler of Vigor seems like a bit of a no-brainer. Yes, it's not Hydra, it's a worm, I'm aware of that. But this one, cast a green permanent spell, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, which is basically going to be everything. Hero's Bane, the next big Hydra, 4 +1/+1s, pay 4, double it, and then keep going with it. Obviously, we need a way to give it trample, but, you know, we don't really mind. People have got to deal with something big and gribbly at some stage, so, you know, we'll just keep going. Phyrexian Hydra is one of the ones I went and picked up especially for this deck. It's got Infect, and it gets -1/-1 counters, but with the amount of +1/+1 counters we have kicking around, they will counteract each other quite significantly, I hope. Ajani, Mentor of Heroes, just to distribute the +1/+1s, or go and get some, look at the top 4 cards and find something useful. Clockwork Hydra, I'd forgotten about it, but I decided to chuck it in. An Artifact Hydra for a bit of a change. Attacks or blocks remove a +1/+1 counter from it. If you do, it pings something. Or you can just tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, you know, that's interestingly different, I thought. Here come the ones you were expecting. Briar Hydra's here. Whenever it deals combat damage to player, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is number of basic land types amongst lands. So we're only going to have forests and plains. We're only going to get 2, but hey, still makes it bigger. Whip-Tongue Hydra is something I didn't realise was on MTGO now, but this one's nice. It enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with flying. And then it gets a load of +1/+1 counters on it for each creature destroyed this way. Again, no trample, but I can cope with that. Hydra Broadmaster, yep, makes a whole load of extra Hydras. Dump your mana into it as quickly as possible. Oran Reef Hydra gets to chuck around +1/+1 counters, and mainly, you know, it's forests that come into play, so yeah. Titania's commands also here. It's probably exile target player's graveyard with this deck, and then get the +1/+1 counters. So bear that in mind. Ooh. But the other 2 modes are fine as well if you need 2 land cards. Yeah, it gives you a way of going searching out Gaze Crade if you're playing this, and say, I don't know, Nykthos should be in here. I don't think I've put it in. I think I forgot. I did. Nykthos should be in the deck as well. But, you know, you can go get Gaze Crade or Nykthos, so on and so forth. Bear it in mind. We'll probably change the land. Like I say, there'll be changes to the land as you'll see it on screen at the moment, but check the deck list. It will be there. Overworld Hydra gets to go and gets us a land when it comes into the battlefield, which is lovely. And Garagos Vicious Watcher. Thought we might as well have the legendary other Hydra in as well. Cuts the cost down of all our Hydra spells. And it does mean the first 3 times that this gets killed. Well, yeah, the first 2 times this gets killed when you cast it the 3rd time. You're still playing 3 mana because of the 4 less if you've got it in play. But whenever a creature you control becomes a target with a spell, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Don't forget this is spells your opponents control as well, so it's all good. The Nissa completed is in, mainly because of the -7/-7 ability to give all our creatures +1/+1 for each forest we control and trample, which just seems ludicrous to me, but hey, that's why it's here. And then there's the Hydras with the X spells, but I'll just mention the Apex Devastator. I have put it in. Obviously, there's a very high chance you can hit some of the X Hydras. Hopefully, you won't, but bear that in mind, because if you put them in, they'd come in and die, unless they've got toughness already. But most of them are 0/0 without the +1/+1 counters. So, going through the Hydras with X in it, we've got Feral Hydra, we've got Hungering Hydra. Can't be blocked by more than 1 creature, which I quite like. And whenever it's dealt damage, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So this just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Protean Hydra is just silly. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is removed from the Protean Hydra, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it at the beginning of the next end step. So if someone attacks you, you block, that takes some damage. We remove that many +1/+1 counters as long as it's not too high, and then get to their end step, you get to put some extra +1/+1 counters back on. Yeah. Ren's Run Hydra is here, which I didn't know existed until I started looking at cards for this deck. Modern Horizons 2 was not a set I really played much in real life, so I missed this one. But yeah, it's got the Reinforce as well, so that might help. Genesis Hydra, go and find something that's really useful for X. Hooded Hydra, probably might play this face down, then turn it face up, but we'll see. Just depends how much mana we have floating around when we do it. Primordial Hydra into battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. Get to our upkeep, double them, and it has trample as long as it has 10 or more. Basically, you should be playing this for 5, so you get the trample because it'll have 10 or more the next upkeep. Bear in mind. Steelbane Hydra, just to give us a nice way of removing artifacts for enchantments that are annoying us. Hopefully we can get it in big. Vastwood Hydra again, dies, you get to distribute a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on the Hydra amongst, you basically get to share the +1/+1 counters out. Not going to go into it too much. And then Voracious Hydra. This is one of the few Hydras that have X in their casting costs that actually have a toughness. They don't die if you do flip them off the Apex Devastator. But you do want to make sure you get this in for a reasonable amount, because you are going to use the fight ability 9 times out of 10 the turn this comes into play, so bear it in mind. But that's it. That's my little take on Polukranos. I thought I'd have some fun and do a Hydra version. Like I say, there's a few lands I'm just going to go and change, so they'll be changed on the deck list when you look at it later on. But if you think I've missed anything out major, let me know down below in the comments. There's a couple of things I'm thinking of in my head that should be in here, but this is more of a casual fun deck, so I'm not going to go too OTT with it, but bear that in mind. But if there's something you think I should have in here, let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers. Bye.